I'm Bill Dembski. I am one of the creators of Inkwell, a publishing technology that turns manuscripts into beautiful books and articles, makes them finished products. I want to talk to you about why I got behind this project and what benefits it's got to offer. First, a little background about myself. I've been in publishing for a long time. I've typeset books. I typeset my first book back 32, 33 years ago. I was an academic editor for a small Dallas publisher. I've published over 25 books of my own, either solo author, co-authored, editor, co-editor. I've been involved in all aspects of book production. I have published with academic presses. I have 2 books with Cambridge University Press. I've got 2 with World Scientific. I've got another one coming out with Cambridge University Press. I've published with religious publishers. I've published with secular publishers. So I know all aspects of the book publishing business, and really Inkwell technology was born of frustration with basically the sorts of speed bumps you deal with in trying to get a book published, and that would also apply to manuscripts with journals. But books are the harder thing. So if you can do books right, you can do just about anything. So I found that when you're trying to get a book published as an author or somebody who's basically the owner of the project, so you can also be an editor, there are various points in the book production process that the manuscript leaves your control. And when it leaves your control, it makes for a lot of problems. People get their hands on it, new softwares get into it and create inconsistencies. And every time you are then called back into the project, you're dealing with software and editors who are controlling it in a way that you no longer feel you really have ownership in the project. And that makes for, I don't want to seem like a control freak, but when you lose control that way because you are the author, you really get a sense that something's being taken away from you. And also, it just slows the process down. I don't know how many times it's happened where some copy editor has gotten his or her hands on a manuscript that I've done and has changed things in ways that I don't like. And then it's hard to actually get in there. I mean, it's one thing if you're using Word and you're using track changes and you know who your editor is and then you can approve or disapprove. But by the time you get a book in with a publisher, they've taken it to another typesetting or publication platform, and then you no longer have that say. And so you have to go through typically a PDF and then approve or disapprove changes. I mean, it's so the advantage of something like Inkwell, I should say the advantage of Inkwell, is that it is an integrated package that keeps everything together under one roof and keeps you as the author in the driver's seat with your hands firmly on the wheel. And that's a big deal. So let me just give you a little background. I mean, how we got into this project, because I'm working with a team. I had done a book over 25 years ago, which required an update. We did a 25th anniversary edition. And I'm trained as a philosopher and mathematician. I can use technical notation well, but I've never really gone beyond Word. I haven't gone with the industry standard, which is LaTeX, because I just really didn't need it. I've worked in probably more philosophy than mathematics. My co-author is a computer scientist and is very comfortable with LaTeX. And the book was originally written in Word, so I decided let's just keep it in Word. We wrote it, used Word's math editor, but when we got to the place where we needed to publish this book, the publisher was going to put it into something called InDesign. This is an Adobe product. And the problem with InDesign is that it ruins all your mathematical formulae. So when we got to that stage, it was like, what do we do? And the simplest thing seemed to be to take it in Word and basically typeset the project in Word. Thing is, Word is not a typesetting tool. It's a word processor. And so when I tried typesetting it, it was just an enormous task getting lines, spacing between words to work out properly, getting lines to line up. Even though there are widow and orphan controls, it was not a good thing. So I had to go through it basically paragraph by paragraph, sometimes doing slight adjustments of the lines by a tenth or a 10% or 20% of a point. So very fine spacings just to get everything to come out. And so the whole thing was jury-rigged. Word does not put in soft hyphens very easily. So at the end of the day, it took probably 6 weeks of work to do something that in Inkwell would take half a day. And that's one of the main reasons we created it, to have an integrated tool where basically you can go from composition, editing, copy editing, getting the manuscript into getting the text all there, the content all there, and then taking it to the book production typesetting phase. So that it's a big deal, because at every point you have these speed bumps, and these speed bumps can make life difficult. In fact, so difficult that budding authors can just give up. So, and this has happened with some of my own work. I've had 2 or 3 books that got stalled during COVID, and I just didn't want to go through the hassle of going with an independent publisher or press to get these books out. I thought, if I can get my own integrated package, then I can just do these books at will and very easily. And that's what I ended up doing. So having this technology actually allows me to publish some things that I have been on hold for years. And in addition to just the publishing technology that we've developed at Inkwell.net, we also have a press, Inkwell Press, at press.inkwell.net, which is a press of integrity and interest on its own grounds. I mean, we're publishing interesting work, but part of the reason for doing this press is to put the technology through its paces to give a proof of concept that we have something that really works. Or as one of my collaborators, indeed the chief collaborator, puts it, he uses the metaphor of eating your own dog food. So if you can eat your own dog food, it tells you that you've actually got something that works. So we're not just putting this out there for others to use, but we're using it ourselves. And I'm finding that with my own work these days, I'm no longer going to Google Docs or to Microsoft Word. I'm going to Inkwell and doing the composition there. And basically you can go through right to the very end, getting the book done. And so, I mean, let me just even review a little bit of what happens in the book composition process and where Inkwell comes in ways that if you work with conventional publishers, you're going to run into a problem. So if I'm doing a book, I mean, in the past, I would have written it in Word, gotten the manuscript into good shape. So then I submit to a publisher. Now, the publisher has their own copy editors, so they're going to go through the manuscript. If they're good about it, they'll do the manuscript in Word and get back to me with track changes so I can actually approve or disapprove of the changes. They don't always do that. Sometimes they'll just take it and then you'll get stuck with a PDF. If you have a PDF, then basically you can't change that. You just have to make notes and tell them what you liked, what you didn't like, and then they have to go and make the changes by hand. So there's a speed bump right there. So let's say you get through the copy editing process. So with the copy editing, the publisher is now happy with what you published or what you're about to publish, and you're happy with it. Okay, so now It goes through a typesetting process. Again, you don't have control of that. Errors can be introduced there. They may do things that you don't particularly like in how they lay things out. Usually then you're at their mercy. You're at their mercy in terms of the fonts, in terms of the spacing. They're going to do that. Sometimes it's because they have an in-house style, but in any case, you have to go along with that. And then there's a proof stage. Okay, that's you'll run your eyes over things and hopefully everything will be fine. But then at the very end, there's also an index if you're doing anything more than a novel. So if you're doing something that's a nonfiction book, you'll have to deal with that. And the index typically, I think even to this day, is the very last thing you do. And once you do it, you can no longer make any changes to pagination or anything. So if you do any changes to the manuscript or to the text, it's got to be very minimal so it doesn't throw off the page numbers. So with Inkwell, we generate our indexes using artificial intelligence, so it's semantically tied to the text. And it's tied in a way so if you do any updates, the index will automatically update itself. So compare that process with Inkwell, where you can compose, you can edit. If the publishing house has its editors, they can get in there. We have a much more sophisticated collaboration tool than Word's track changes. Everything is done online, so you can, so it's in the cloud. It's web or browser-based, I actually should say, so that you can track everything that's being done. You can approve, disapprove things. You can see who's doing what edits. And so the whole collaboration editing part of things gets done easily. And then you can typeset it. You've got full power in terms of the typesetting. It's a very powerful typesetting program. You can choose any size font. When I had to typeset this one book in Word, basically I had to choose between an 11, 11.5, or 12-point font. With Inkwell, I would have preferred for that book that I described earlier to do it at an 11.25-point font. With Inkwell, you can do 11.25, you can do 11.133 or whatever. It's you've got full power over what you're doing. One thing I've failed to point out at this point is with that book that I did, it was a technical book, so if it had been up to my co-author, he would have just said, well, let's just do the whole thing in LaTeX. But because I had written the book originally, we were still using text from the earlier version, and it was in Word. We went with Word. But, it was when we used Word's equation features, they promised to get all garbled up in InDesign, Adobe InDesign, that the publisher wanted to use. And so, as I said, we ended up doing the entire book in Word, but you can upload a Word document with all its equations and everything gets preserved in Inkwell. It's got a visual equation editor for somebody like me who's not comfortable with LaTeX, but you can also punch in LaTeX commands and it'll read them. You can copy and paste from formulae equations in Wikipedia. If you get an equation from Grok or ChatGPT, it will read that. So it's really a universal equation editor. It's got, I think, for most practical purposes, all the power you want in LaTeX. There are people I've talked to. There's one mathematician that I know, Caltech grad, who found that this really wasn't quite enough for him. But I think for most people, it is enough. So you've got the power of LaTeX without the hassle of LaTeX. LaTeX is an old program, 40 plus years old. Inkwell is built on a much newer platform called Typest, T-Y-P-S-T. but it incorporates a lot of open source, off-the-shelf things, but it's the way it incorporates it all that makes the whole publication process much easier. What else can I say to sing its praises? I mean, projects that have been stymied for me for years, I'm finally willing to take off the shelf because I've got an easy way to get them through to publication. And making things easy for authors, especially first-time authors, is a big deal. To make an analogy, I mean, I remember years ago reading about a school where they took a survey of students and basically were trying to get them to get a shot, get some medical procedure on campus. And they knew that they needed to get this, but because it wasn't entirely clear how to get to it, where the medical center was, what the times were, they got very little uptake. I think it was like, 5-10%. When they basically just gave the information about where on campus it was, what times the service was offered, they got about a 10-fold increase. And I think there's this kind of cognitive load when you're dealing with producing a book. There's just so much to keep track of. And if you have to just deal with then, okay, what's going to be happening with the typesetting, the index, how to coordinate all this, how to work with editors who I need to make the manuscript better, it can become overwhelming. And then also you're often at the mercy of a publisher who's in this to make money and may feel that they're doing you a favor by publishing your book. At Inkwell, I mean, we have a studio.inkwell.net that allows would-be authors, budding authors, to get their manuscripts put in a form where they can self-publish. We will help you get your ISBN, your LCCN, Library of Congress number, so that you can publish it and get it out on Amazon and Ingram and all that good stuff. But we also have our own press, and with our press, I mean, we'll then get your manuscript into shape with you as the owner, with your hands firmly on the steering wheel. And I mean, we're looking for interesting books to publish. And with Inkwell Press, our publishing model is very different from the industry. In the industry, you're usually looking at about 15% of net revenues. We're offering 50% of net revenues because you're able to do most of the work yourself using our platform, and then we will get your book out there, distributed, marketed, all of that. So, but at the base of everything that we're doing is this publishing technology. I would call it a book production technology, but it's even more than just book production. It's really any sort of finished or finishing of a manuscript, getting it into a form that will pass muster, that will be attractive, that's a finished product. That's not something you'll get from Word or from Google Docs. I mean, you can jury rig it, you can fiddle with it, but there are always going to be problems. And I should also say that, I mean, we allow exporting into a lot of different formats. So it's not just that you can export into PDF so that you can produce a hardback or paperback of your book. You can export into ebook. One of the things that we found with this book that I had done with the equations is that when you export into ebook, the equations often look terrible because they don't size properly in something like Kindle. So what we do is when we export into ebook, we change equations into scalable vector graphics so that they size appropriately. So this is a very well thought out technology. If you try to upload a PDF generated by a Word document, often you can't get it to work in Amazon because the images don't get properly sized, and you don't get the right resolution. Word has bugs, so even though it was supposed to give us a 300 dpi for some of the images that we had in our book, it didn't do it. It downsized into 72, and then Amazon spit them out. So when you work with Inkwell, you can be guaranteed getting your book into the Amazon and into the Ingram ecosystem so that you can actually get them out. Again, there are all these speed bumps that you face in trying to get books published, and we've removed those speed bumps. We also allow you to export into LaTeX. So if you really, at the end of the day, want to get into LaTeX, you can do that. One of the advantages, though, with Inkwell is that we have a very user-friendly WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get editor that lets you see exactly what your text is going to be looking like, in terms of the actual content. And then you see right next to it also the PDF of what it would look like. And you do, all of this happens in real time. If you go with something like Overleaf, for instance, you have a much more complicated editor that doesn't give you a sense, it's not a WYSIWYG editor. And then if you actually want to see what the PDF looks like, you have to compile the program. So this is much more user-friendly. You see in real time what your manuscript is going to be looking like. Now, and again, to just make the point about what happens when you have to go outside an ecosystem that you're working with. So again, with Inkwell, you've got an integrated package which combines everything, from the point of, it's soup to nuts, start to finish, going from composition to actual finished product where you hit export and then you can submit to Amazon or Ingram or wherever. So if you don't have that, you then, as I said, you face these speed bumps. And let me just collect my thoughts here. So my editor on this video is going to need to excise this. So what was I going to say on this? I'm struggling here. This was it. Okay. So I had a manuscript that I was exporting into LaTeX. I created it in Inkwell, but it was being submitted to a journal. They wanted it in LaTeX. But instead of actually doing the edits in Inkwell or even in LaTeX, they sent me a proof in PDF, which I then had to go through and just annotate, put notes, make changes. And it was just a long process. And this is a long paper. It's actually a monograph. It was over 50,000 words. And it was just a huge hassle. And it probably took me 2-3 days to get through all of that. If the editor had simply worked in Inkwell, because the editor was still making substantive changes to the wording, I could have done this in a matter of an hour or two. It would have been much faster because I would have seen where the changes were made, where the notes, what sorts of the queries that the editor was making, and then just responded to them right there in Inkwell. But because I exported to LaTeX, they created a PDF based on that and then got back with me with the PDF. I was out of my medium. I was in their medium, and so it just took a much longer time. So to the degree that you can stay within the same ecosystem, the same book production or manuscript finishing technology, you're going to do yourself much good. You'll save a lot of time and you'll feel much more in control about everything that's happening. And again, I don't want to make it seem like this is a matter of being a control freak, but if you are the author of something, then you are its creator and you deserve to have oversight over everything that's going on. And in conventional publishing, it is assumed that you're going to give up that freedom, that right, and that you're just going to have to go along with things. And especially if you're a seasoned author, but even if you're not a seasoned author, I mean, it's, as a seasoned author, I have the sense that my literary writing sensibilities and grasp of the content is going to be better typically than anybody who's going to be working on it. But even if you're a novice, you still going to have clear ideas about what you want to have happen with your manuscript, and you deserve to have that right. So with Inkwell, you do stay in the driver's seat. I know I'm repeating myself. You are the one who are going to have your hands on the wheel. And that's important, and it makes for a much happier experience in the whole publication process. It makes it more expeditious. It makes it just easier to get through it all. And I think it also makes it that much more likely that you're going to get through the process, because otherwise those speed bumps, if there are enough of them, or if you see them coming up, you may just want to avoid the hassle of getting your book published. And I think there are lots of would-be authors that would get their books out if they could do this much more easily. And so I think the Inkwell technology gives you that. I should add, there's one other, little aspect of it is, if you're going to have a book, you typically need to have a cover, and cover design can be a big deal. So that is something you typically have to go outside to use something like Canva or Adobe Illustrator. If you're publishing your book with Inkwell Press, or if you're using our studio to get a book produced, we will produce a cover for you. We're all service. We will handle everything, but you will be able, just with the technology itself, to get past the finish line and get your book published. You may have to do a crude cover yourself. Actually, that's probably something we should do, is helping authors, just giving them instructions for doing covers. Cover design is a big deal. It requires some artistry, but if the point is to get the book out, that's something you can also do, and we can help you with that. Okay, well, I've talked probably enough. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope somebody who is going to be editing this video will slice and dice it and take the best from it. So thank you. Appreciate your attention. Take care.